Now, Margaret had only been making films for about 3 years when she appeared in this movie, and I might add she celebrated her 7th birthday during production. Now, at any age, she was a major scene stealer, and it's one reason Judy Garland wasn't too keen to make this movie. Judy was convinced Margaret would walk off with it, but director Vincent Minnelli convinced Judy to trust him. He said that he'd make sure Judy wouldn't get lost in the shuffle. And indeed, the movie turned out to be a great triumph for Maggie and Judy, and everybody else connected with it. I've seen this movie so many times over the years, it never fails to entertain me. I mean, talk about a feel-good movie. One of the great touches that I love is Margaret O'Brien, so little and so young, always talking about doom and destruction and her dead dolls and such. So funny.
On this week's Pop Profile, we have with us legendary Academy Award-winning icon, Miss Margaret O'Brien.
Wow.
Well, it's wonderful to be here.
Well, thank you so
Talking
much.
to both of you.
I know.
My goodness.
We're so happy to have you. Thank you for taking the time to come and chat with us. I'm gonna ask a controversial question right off the top here. What was it like to upstage Judy Garland?
Oh, I don't think I upstaged Judy Garland. Nobody can upstage Judy Garland, but we worked together like serious actresses. She treated me like a serious actress, but also she was fun to be around too.
Yeah.
And when we had a break, she would jump rope with me, and we'd play a game called Jacks. I don't think they have that game anymore, but it was a fun game. So I had my childlike interaction with her, but also when it came to doing a scene, we worked together as serious actresses, trying to steal each other's scene. Of course.
So it
awesome.
was a great partnership in that
Yes.
she elevated your ability and you elevated hers.
Well, that was the fun of working as an
Right.
actress. I love working with people that treated me as an adult actress.
Yeah.
I did, and she did, but she was always very concerned also about my welfare.
Oh.
And my mother and she got along very well, too.
Oh, wonderful.
And, of course, it was a very happy time for Judy because she was having a romance with Vincent Minnelli.
Yes.
And it was me in St. Louis that really gave us Liza Minnelli.
That's
Right.
So,
If I was told that I had to pick one film, I think it would be Meet Me in St. Louis, because that's where my father met my mother, and I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that movie, so I guess that's my favorite. The way my father shot my mother, photographed her in Meet Me in St. Louis, just beautiful. From a child star, he helped her become a lovely young woman, and she made the change.
Wasn't scratched with Judy at all. She had great potentials. She could have done anything she wanted to. As great as Dusa or Bernard or Garbo. You could tell her 20 things, and you'd never know if you're getting through to her or not, because people were messing with her and making her up and so forth. And by God, everything would be in place, you know? Wouldn't forget a thing.
Have yourself a merry little Christmas. It will be your last.
Original lyrics.
Original lyrics.
lyrics.
OG honey.
Welcome back to
It's Christmas, everyone.
Merry
Okay,
Christmas.
this is the funniest part about us doing this episode when we do it, because I was like, Movie in St. Louis is a Christmas movie, and Molly was like, I don't think it is. I think it's more just like a general like 40s musical. And I was like, okay. And then everywhere online was like, Meet Me in St. Louis, the Christmas musicals of all Christmas musicals. And I was like, okay. So I'm counting this as our Christmas musical. even though we are doing a very overt Christmas musical next week. But we'll
Yes.
Would you say, though, that the majority of this plot is about Christmas?
No, well,
No, I would not say the majority of the plot is about Christmas. However, I would say that it has Christmas themes running throughout the entirety of the plot.
Interesting.
And I would say also that most Christmas-based media is very rarely always set in Christmas time.
Oh,
I
really?
think a lot of good Christmas media is like tangentially Christmas and more like Christmas themed more than it is about the holiday itself. Does that make sense?
Give me one example.
No, because now that I'm thinking about it, I don't know that I believe what I said.
So you'll hear back
You
in
just
2
have to-
weeks
You just have to believe me.
if
on that.
Adam is correct.
I'll
or
do
not.
some research.
I guess the one I could think of would be It's a Wonderful Life. Is mostly not at Christmas. Although also every time I watch that movie, I'm like, man, it takes a long time for this guy to try to commit suicide. There's also a lot of that movie that's just not the actual plot of the movie that you
I
remember.
did not. My mom really likes It's a Wonderful Life. She watches it, I believe, every year around Christmas time. And it is not for me. It is just a film that she enjoys, and I would sit there and watch it and be like, this is really depressing.
You know what Nan doesn't like? A Christmas Story.
Yes, and you know what I honestly was just thinking about this. A Christmas Story is a really good example of straight camp. Meaning, I think that movie, specifically that movie, is straight people understanding what camp can be and like making a movie in that like vein. Because there is absolutely nothing campier than a leg lamp. Period.
Yeah, I agree that the lamp itself is camp. And in fact, every time I use the lamp Sontag example, that's
what
the
you
lamp
think
that I
That's the lamp
picture.
you're thinking of.
I don't know if that's what Sontag thought of when she thought of
Well,
it.
she wrote it in 64. But how else is that movie camp? I feel like it's, I was going to say it's extremely earnest, which is,
It's
and
very
if it
earnest.
fails, then it could be camp.
I
but-
think it's very like, it's specific. If you're saying like quote unquote lamp, whatever, I would say that's like quote unquote 50s childhood is like they're like going for like the general experience of like being like the toy he wants more than anything in the world is a BB gun. The like whole thing around the BB, the whole interaction with Santa when he pushes him down like, I think a lot of that, I would not say all of the entire movie is camp, but I also think there is something about some setting a movie in the 50s and or 60s automatically puts it in a camp lens. And I think it's because roles were so narrowly focused that like, that's when you can like explore like the weirdness of what those roles are. Like Mars Attacks is like a very good example of like weird campy 60s stuff too.
I love your camp reading of A Christmas Story, but I think it is not often received that way. I think a lot of people watch it as like, really? This is truly what I remember my 50s childhood as being, with no irony.
No irony.
Attached
As Susan said, us gay men are
gatekeepers,
stewards of camp.
I also think that it's telling that while Adam was preparing for the episode Meet Me in St. Louis, all he could think about was A Christmas Story and if it was camp or not.
Well, here's what I'm gonna say before we even get into this movie.
Before we even introduce ourselves to the show.
Introduce ourselves, I just want to say Judy Garland is a treasure. There is a reason that she is canonized as icon and legend.
She threw the first stone at Stonewall.
You are a friend of Dorothy for a reason.
Yes.
And that's all I really want to say. Welcome to Showgays. This week we are doing Meet Me in St. Louis. I'm Adam. This is RJ. Say hello, RJ. I realize we've never actually introduced ourselves. That's RJ. Say hello.
Hello.
And that's Molly. Molly, differentiate your voice in some way from RJ.
I mean, it's indistinguishable usually. So
there you go.
The listeners are like, I love when these three girls chat.
These three women. Molly, because you tortured me, you threw me on the rack and had me do 2 weeks in a row of a challenge. I am challenging you this week to summarize in 1 minute the entirety of the plot that is Meet Me in St. Louis. Your time starts now.
This is the story of the Smith family who live in St. Louis. They spend the summer waiting to get a phone call. They spend Halloween playing some pranks. Then, 2/3 of the way through the movie, we find out that they're moving to New York, which is the introduction of any conflict. They spend the winter trying to find dates to a ball. And then their youngest child cries about snowmen, so they decide not to move to New York. And the conflict is resolved. Also, their 2 oldest daughters get engaged. And then they go to the St. Louis World's Fair.
Amazing.
Amazing.
In less than 30 seconds.
A true chapter book of a movie. Truly. This is the treehouse. What is it? The treehouse?
Magic Treehouse.
The Magic Treehouse of Christmas.
This is the
easy reader.
Children.
Yes, absolutely.
Introducing you to chapter books.
Yeah.
You don't need to remember the last one to understand what's going on in this one. Yeah, so this movie is fascinating because I know it in terms of just like iconically in culture. I am aware of the trolley song.
Iconic.
Everyone knows Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas. And I actually didn't really know the third kind of original song in this piece. The Boy Next Door, or whatever it's called. What is that song called? The Boy Next Door.
I think that's it, yeah.
I didn't really know that one, but I like knew. I thought I really got what this movie was about, but I also always got this movie confused with Holiday Inn, starring Bing Crosby. For some reason, I thought it was like Meet Me in the Holiday Inn at St. Louis or whatever. In my mind, I think that's what I conflated it as. So yeah, like this was my first time seeing this. I had never like listened to the music in like a real way before this, so it was very fun for me to watch it because I feel like that doesn't really happen that often.
This was also my first time watching it. The only reference I had of Meet Me in St. Louis before watching it, 2. One is at Disney World when they do the trolley, like there's a trolley that comes in the mornings every couple of minutes. And there are trolley dancers on it, and they do a little review and dancing, but the main song is the trolley song, and then it's different based on what season it is. So I was like, okay, I know the trolley song, and they played that instrumental like all over Disneyland's main streets too. The main pop culture reference I know this from is from the Sex and the City movie, where Jennifer Hudson plays a character named Louise, who applies to be Carrie Bradshaw, played by Sarah Jessica Parker, to apply to be her personal assistant. And when she says that her name is Louise, Carrie is like, oh, like Meet Me in St. Louis. Have you seen that? And she's like, no, I haven't. And they're like, well, where are you from? And she goes, I'm from St. Louis. So that's literally her entire character, is that she's never seen this movie. And she also like has like a fake like Prada bag or whatever. And like at the end of the movie, they watch the movie together and she gives her like a real Prada bag or whatever. And so that's when I first heard of the movie Meet Me in St. Louis.
If someone was to say to me, my name is Louise, my thought would be sing out Louise, like Gypsy. It would not be, oh, like the movie Meet Me in St. Louis. And that's weird to me, but okay.
Yeah.
Just remember that a gay man wrote Sex in the City. So let's just wrote and created and directed.
Is that Mark Cherry? No, that's Desperate Housewives. Who wrote?
3 names. That's all I got for you. I don't know off the top of my head.
Sarah Jessica Parker.
Sarah Jessica
Gay man, Sarah Jessica Parker.
I feel like before I say my connection to it, we have to just talk about St. Louis versus St. Louis, because I'm sure that we are not going to be consistent.
I wrote that
I
down too.
think of this musical as Meet Me in St. Louis because they sing the song and very clearly that's how they say it. But I would call this town St. Louis. Yeah. And I think that's like a north-south divide is how I understand it, is like people who are from, because I think St. Louis is kind of like in that, it's like right on that edge of like, it's kind of
let's
barrier
discuss
between
the
them two.
Mason-Dixon line, everybody.
Yeah. And it's also, right, it has like the gateway to the West. So it has this reputation as like this kind of right in the middle of the US in a lot of ways, right? Of like East, West, and North, South. So I say St. Louis, and I think that's just a regionalism. I don't think that there's a correct answer.
I think so too. I know.
Yeah, it's not like New Orleans where if you say New Orleans, you're like actually wrong. Like that's the wrong way to say it. I think either way is acceptable. And I don't even know. I don't even know if I know a person from St. Louis
that says it.
It is weird saying St. Louis now because for the past like week I've been saying St. Louis.
Meet me in St. Louis. Yeah.
So that feels crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway, here's my connection to the musical. So my mom really liked this movie when I was a kid, and we would watch it quite a lot. Although when I was younger, so I couldn't really remember what happened in it, which I now feel not as bad about now that I realize very little happens in the movie. But it was one of those things that I watched like a lot as a kid. And so I couldn't remember much going into it. But then as I was watching, would have these flashes of like, oh, that character, or like this thing or whatever, things would come back to me. So here were the three things that I remembered going into it. One was Judy Garland sings Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas, and that it's sad in the movie. I remembered, my memory was that they get excited about an ice box. Like maybe they like get an ice box for the first time or something, but it's actually that Tootie, the youngest sister, likes to ride along on the ice wagon. So I think that was what I was remembering, was the ice wagon. And then 3 was that they go to a state fair, and that the state fair was not as good as the Minnesota State Fair, in my estimation, because the Minnesota State Fair is the best.
Sure.
Also wrong, it was not a state fair, it was a World's Fair. But I remember having to ask...
World's Fair, yeah.
I remember having to ask my mom, like, do they have fairs in, like, other places? Because, like, I thought it was just a Minnesota thing. Yeah, so I will tell you other things that, like, sparked my memory as we go through it. But also, I texted my mom... because I knew we were doing this episode, and I was wondering from her perspective why she liked the movie so much. And she said, well, Judy Garland sings one of the best Christmas songs of all time. And I said, anything else? And she said, no, I remember the plot was kind of confusing. So apparently my memory that this was like a top 5 movie for my mom was like also not entirely accurate. It was maybe just that I or one of my siblings wanted to watch it a lot. I have no idea now why we were so into this movie for a while.
Yes, however, I also remember, and this is probably similar for both of you, that like VHS was like becoming a thing, but it's not. But most people didn't have like hundreds of thousands of VHS tapes. Like you just had like a couple dozen, maybe.
You knew that like, oh,
so
this
you
is
just
like,
knew like they were ones that you like enough that you would literally rewatch them, and then you're like, they just become
yeah.
That was me in Clueless. My sister had the VHS of Clueless, and I was like, this is the best movie of all time.
Shocking that that's not a musical.
It was.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. It didn't do well.
I thought they did
I want to say it stopped on Triumph.
They also did Heathers and Mean Girls. They've done it with all the teen movies now.
Yeah.
This movie musical is not based on a stage thing. It is based on a short short stories that were released in the New Yorker over the period of a year, and then they were like compiled into a book by a woman named Sally Benson. She was a native St. Louisan or Louisan?
Louisian?
I have no idea. That was what I literally Googled, what is the name of people, what do you call people from St. Louis? And it said St. Louisan. And I was like, oh, but I don't know how to pronounce it. She was born in St. Louis on September 3rd, 1897. And she lived at 5135 Kensington Avenue in St. Louis, which is what the name of the short stories were called in the New Yorker, the like recurring short stories about her like childhood. She did 8 altogether for New Yorker, and then once the book came out and was published by Random House, she added 4 more to complete the like calendar year. So every month happens from 1903 to 1904 in the book. And over the years, it's been adapted into like a dozen languages. It's very popular. And the only other thing I had about the book was that she like when they released the book, or the stories in the New Yorker came out from June 41 to May of 42, and I guess MGM must have grabbed the rights really quickly, because by the time Random House made it an actual book, they named it Meet Me in St. Louis because they knew the movie was going to come out. And like she had written a screenplay for the movie, but they didn't end up using it at all, which is whatever, I guess. But yeah, so this is like kind of her life. She said that as a kid, her nickname was Tootie, but she is not the character Tootie. She's like the character Agnes in the movie.
Oh. Yeah. I also did some research on the book, and I read a section of her the biography of this author. I did not read the whole thing because I like this podcast, but not that much. And so apparently she is Tootie in terms of the lineup of the family, but a lot of the like antics were based on her sister Agnes. So Agnes is the like one older sister. And so she swapped their roles basically to make Tootie more interesting and like the one that's always getting into scrapes and stuff like that. But apparently Agnes also died in 1933. And so there's a bit of like, there's some themes that run through it, even though it's like extremely like nostalgic and everything's great. And oh my gosh, like, wasn't it wonderful to grow up in the turn of the century? Very a la Christmas Story. But there are some themes of like death, like Tootie's obsession with death is also in the stories / book, that this author was speculating could have to do with the fact that Agnes died. Apparently she also had like an infant brother who died like 24 hours after he was born. So she had dealt with some tragedy. And also that drunkenness is sort of a thing that keeps coming up, and that apparently she struggled with alcoholism as well. So there are some like little themes that you can pull from it that are a little bit sad, but most of it was this like nostalgia bait, which was super popular during World War II, which is what propelled both like the stories and then the movie, was this like idea of like returning to a simpler time in America, basically. So I feel like that's going to be a theme as we discuss it, along with what makes a Christmas movie, which is the question that Adam raised at the beginning.
Yeah. I would like to read I would actually like to read the Meet Me in St. Louis like book, just because I think I do kind of like those. It felt very like Little Women, where it's just like a series of little happenstances, almost like a sitcom, really.
Yeah.
More than anything else. And I do kind of like that format, because it's so accessible and it's so charming, I think sometimes. And it was, I guess, charming enough that they literally turned it into a movie, which is like truly crazy.
So don't give up writing, girls.
Don't give up writing. Don't give up on your dreams.
Keep writing, girls. Soon your family trauma will turn into an MGM movie.
Yep. First, MGM will come back. Let's start there. This movie was directed by Vincent Minnelli.
That Minnelli. You are correct. It is that Minnelli you are thinking of.
In my notes, because I checked. I just wanted to see when it was released before I watched it, and so I had like seen that, and it wasn't until I was doing reading after that somebody like said in an article like the Minnelli that she later married, that I was like, oh my, and so I wrote it in all caps in the Google Doc, that it took me way too long of a period of time to be like, oh, the Minnelli might be an interesting name that you should pay attention to.
The screenplay was by Irving Brecker and Fred F. Finkelhoff.
Maybe that's the Holiday in confusion, because the Irving threw you off.
Sure. Yeah, I knew the screenplay was by Irving
Also,
Brecker.
Irving
Buh.
In a quick glance, you could say, oh yeah, Irving Berlin wrote the music for Meet Me in St. Louis. And you're like, oh, he wrote the Cakewalk? Ooh.
It was produced by Arthur Freed. It stars Judy Garland as Esther Smith, Margaret O'Brien as Tootie Smith, Mary Astor as, is it Emma? Is it
Anna?
Anna Smith, the mom. Lucille Bremer is Rose Smith. Tom Drake is John Truitt. And Marjorie Main, these are the top billed people in this movie, plays Katie the maid. So
who's the best part of the movie? So absolutely deserves to be there.
You're not wrong. She's great. Cinematography is by George J. Folsey. It is edited by Albert Axt. The music is by, the music is by George Stoll. Production MGM movie was distributed by Lowe's. It was released in St. Louis on November 22nd, 1944, but went wide November 28th.
Which is a fun little promo, I think.
None of the stars went to the premiere in St. Louis, so that's fine. But at the New York premiere, on the 28th is where Judy announced that she was engaged to Vincent Minnelli. So that's
scandal.
The running time is 113 minutes, so just shy of 2 hours. And its budget was $1.885 million in 1944. So I did some math. So if you do that to today's money, to 2021 money, that's going to be around $26 million. And its box office, what it made in its original release, not including all the re-releases that happened throughout the years, but in its original release, it made $6.566 million. And if you inflate that to today's money, that is going to be $104 million. So
a hit.
It's quite a recoup for MGM. It was their highest. It's the second highest grossing movie of the 1940s, I think is what I saw. And it was for MGM, the company, it was the second highest grossing film they'd ever made after Gone with the Wind.
Wow.
Which is like really crazy. And there is something about this movie that it's kind of, reading that statistic, I was very shocked, because this doesn't feel like a movie that, like, Gone with the Wind is an epic. Mm-hmm. And so you understand why the scope of that movie is like, of course this made a lot of money. Like, watching this movie, I was kind of surprised that it was like the second highest grossing film of that year, and like the second highest grossing film of the four, or whatever, because I was like, I don't know. There's something kind of like intimate about the film. It is not the standard like lavish big budget movie musicals that you get like in the 60s. It's really kind of just contained to its own little world. So I don't know. I thought that was interesting.
Was this Judy's next big movie after Wizard of Oz?
No. So we are still in the studio system. So people get signed to a specific studio, yes. And then they are just
like K-pop.
Yes. And then they are players in the studio, and then they just get like picture after picture after picture after picture. So this is 39 was Wizard of Oz. So this is 5 years after Wizard of Oz. I don't even know how many movies she did between, but I know she did movies in between then and now. But she was trying to age out of this like teenage ingenue role. And she originally didn't want this role. She thought it was like kind of beneath her, because she was like, I've literally been doing this for so long. I want a juvenile Oscar for this crap. I want to be done with this. But in later years, she said that this was one of her favorite roles she ever played. So
yeah, I mean, I would say like she is very good, but you could have easily swapped someone else to play the role. Like there wasn't anything crazy about the role that it made you feel like Judy Garland has to play this. Do you know what I mean?
No, I actually really disagree, and I think
Oh,
it
really?
would be very hard for
a different actress to
I
play.
think there is she has an innate star quality, and I think this is also because she had like been groomed by the studio for so long. But she like there's
groomed,
something
fed, prodded, poked,
yeah,
IV'd, yeah.
There is something about watching her in this movie, especially because like the only other Judy Garland film I've ever seen is The Wizard of Oz. I've never seen another. This is the first film I've seen past Wizard of Oz. And there is that she's so good in Wizard of Oz, like she really carries that entire film on her own, honestly. And in this movie, the way she like, I mean, I feel like I'm already talking about performances, but I just think the way that she is both like still really believable as this like teenager, ostensibly like probably 17-year-old or whatever, but also carries this like bereft melancholy this whole time and like really deploys it so well. And like she does obviously have the like massive doe eyes that she's very famous for and like the pouty lip, but like she's just like captivating to watch on screen. And it's anytime anybody else is on, you're like, okay, they're good, but it's just, I don't know, there's something about her that's you're very drawn to, I think.
I feel like, I mean, obviously her performance of Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas is like perfect, and no one's ever done it as well as she has. So that I can't imagine someone else doing. But I do also see RJ's point that like, I mean, there's nothing distinctive about really any of the characters.
Yeah,
so
but Esther,
in that way, kind of you could slot anyone into the role, but she kind of makes it interesting, I think, because of her star quality. And then, like I said, that performance is I mean, I think I wrote in my notes, like, this scene is literally perfect when she sings that in the movie.
Yeah. And she kind of has nothing to do for the first, like, 30 minutes of the film. Like, it's kind of not about her at all. She does the Meet Me in St. Louis, and then she kind of just, like, sits at a dinner table. And then that's, like, really
Louis.
Yeah.
And she wears a baller tennis outfit. I love that tennis outfit.
I can't even.
Costumes are going to take 45 minutes of this conversation today. Okay, so let's talk about awards. So it was nominated. It did not win any competitive Oscars. It was only nominated. It was nominated for Best Writing for Adapted Screenplay. It was nominated for Best Cinematography and Color. It was nominated for Best Music for the scoring of a musical picture, and it was nominated for Best Music for the song for the trolley song. The only thing it won, and you can't even say it won because really, Margaret O'Brien, who plays Tootie, she won a Juvenile Academy Award, but she kind of won it for every film that she had been in 1944, and I think she was in 3 different movies. But obviously, this was the biggest one she was in that year.
Can I share an interesting tidbit about Margaret O'Brien?
Yeah.
She apparently was already famous when they made this movie. She was famous for a movie called, I think it was called The Search for Margaret, which is about a British Blitz orphan. And so she like was super famous for being this like really like adorable, everyone fell in love with her in this movie that's about her being a sad orphan or whatever. But her name was Angela. And she changed her name to Margaret
after the movie?
The character that she played. It would be like if Jennifer Lawrence were like, I'm going to just go by Katniss now. Like, what?
It's like if Ben Platt just said, my name is Evan now.
My name is Evan. My name is Dear Evan Hansen.
Dear E. Hansen.
My name
I just feel like, I mean, like, I guess it was a marketing thing, right? Because then you could put like Margaret O'Brien on the poster, and people would be like, "Oh, Margaret!" Like, Margaret. I love Margaret or whatever. But like, what a crazy story of Hollywood taking your identity away to also, like literally.
Like, what a crazy time! Clearly we are living in a world where we are over communicated with everything. But back in the day when the only form of media you had was like radio, a newspaper, and the movie that you see once a month, it's like, oh yeah, that's Margaret.
I mean, not that Hollywood doesn't still do this, because they absolutely do. Like, people still change their names. But like, this was like at its peak where it was like, oh, you sound slightly ethnic of any variety, let me fix that real quick and make it like white girl, but like a name. There was not a good joke. I have a bunch of trivia. I'm not going to read all of it, but if we touch on things that I think kind of are like it, I will read some of these, but they are just in general. If we don't end up getting to it, I think you should read them because they are wild. Can I talk about this Academy Award really quick before we move into this film? So she won this Juvenile Academy Award. This is 5 years after Judy Garland won hers. She purports having a very different experience throughout her Hollywood career because by the time she became an actress, kind of those horrible techniques that were used on Judy were like not really happening anymore. They had kind of realized that they like were bad. So she's still alive, which is like also crazy. She's like one of the last remaining people alive from the golden age of Hollywood. But she it was like 1950. It was like 10 years after she won this award. Her mom had a maid. She asked the maid to like clean the statue. The maid took it, did not return for 3 days. Then her mom like died. This is not because of the same thing. But just in the same
much shock.
In the same time frame, this also happened. And then, so she like didn't know. She kind of didn't realize that the maid had this thing. And then like by the time she realized that it was the maid who had it, it was like months and months later, and she had like fled and like changed. Like there was no forwarding address. Yeah. She was like gone. She'd lost her juvenile Oscar. The Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences like made her a new one so she could like have one because it was like such a tragedy that she lost this thing. But like for years they didn't know where it was, and then it turned up at an estate sale in like the 90s, and like she got it back. So like 50 years after she won this Oscar, she like got it back randomly because like people knew the story, and like they saw like there was someone there, and they looked at the like engraving on the statuette, and it said Margaret O'Brien, and that's how she like ended up getting it back.
Wow.
Which is like the wildest story. And there are a lot of things about this movie that are very reminiscent of those like old Hollywood stories where it's like everything was so dramatic, like on stage and off stage, that's kind of also what's fascinating about it. Like the fact that Judy famously hated Lucille Bremer, who plays Rose. She like thought she was like a really shitty actress and like tried to make sure she wasn't cast. But Lucille was like a pet project of the producer. Like he had like brought her into the studio and was like, I'm gonna make her a star. And so like, but like, what's crazy is like they have such good chemistry as sisters.
Yeah.
Like you fully buy that. You
fully buy that they're sisters.
It's so good. I think it's just so like Hollywood was so wild back then. Okay, we have to move on to talk about this film because I really need to get into it.
I think though it's fascinating that the world outside of the movie is, would you say, more fascinating than the actual movie?
It's more fascinating than the plot of the movie, but I do think there are aspects of this movie that are like genuinely quality filmmaking and like film presentation. Okay, cue the MGM logo.
Okay. Rawr, 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 rawr.
With the opening because I feel like it's so rich. First off, this lesbian housekeeper who starts off the movie being like, I am not interested in the tastes of men when I am cooking my meals. It's like,
what a great start. I mean, truly. What a great start.
This movie starts with a scene where they are making ketchup. That is what they are making.
It's one of the things I wrote. I could not figure out. I was like, okay, so it's like sweet, sour, spices. And then I was like, okay, so they're like, I guess they're like making like a pasta sauce or something, but like, I don't know whether that would be sour. And then they started putting it in bottles. And I was like, is it a drink? Are they making a drink?
Is this Yoo-hoo? What is that? V8? It's ketchup. And then they serve it as the first course.
And then they serve it as the first course.
Yeah, is it the same? No, because then they eat a soup that's also red. But I was like, but is it the thing that, because they put that in bottles. So is it the same thing that they're eating later?
Pretty sure it's the same
red thing?
Because
I'm almost positive.
They pan to the dad to see like, what does he think? Remember? And didn't he say like it was fine, or like they didn't say anything, or?
Yeah, because there's this whole running bit in the... Okay, first of all, when I talk about this movie as any kind of comedy, I do not mean in any way that you are laughing at any of it, because it's not actually funny. But I think this movie is very good at like finding the humor of life.
Yeah.
Like I think that's what this movie excels at. But there's like this running bit in the beginning that they're like trying to figure out. Because like I think ketchup is like...
It's hard.
It is technically hard because there are like sweeter ketchups and there are like more acidic ketchups and stuff like that. And so everybody has their own opinion. It's the classic, there's too many cooks in the kitchen. And then I think they do pan when the dad finally like tastes it. And I think he says it's like good or whatever as like his seal of approval.
I guess I just thought that they were looking at him because they were trying to get him to eat fast.
I will say that moment is very funny when she takes the
But the best, the real moment that I was like, give this woman all the awards was when he like goes over to the kitchen door and she's like poking out of it, like listening in. Oh my gosh, classic maid antics. I love it.
Classic upstairs downstairs antics.
Yes, she's the maid is very funny and very unsung in this family, I think, with all that the guff that she has to get from these people.
Feel like she has such a strong presence in the first episode in the summer, and then she kind of gets lost in the other episodes, and I wish that there was more of her.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tootie really outshines her because she becomes fully chaotic.
Yeah.
She brings a lot of chaos to Halloween, yeah.
So I'm going to break down this family really quick because I think it's a story about a family.
Yeah.
So Alonzo Smith is the dad. Anna Smith is the mom. The oldest daughter is Rose, then Esther, then Agnes, and then Tootie. And then at the very oldest, technically older than Rose, there is Alonzo Jr., who they just call Lon. But he kind of is barely in it because he ends up going to Princeton. And then there's Katie, the housemaid. And then there's Grandpa Joe. Not the Grandpa Joe from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, but like this Grandpa Joe.
But like a very
problematic Grandpa Joe.
Yes, less problematic. Same ilk though. Same like charming.
Well, I don't know. He has that weird story about like going to China. I don't know. And he wears a fez.
He certainly didn't scam his daughter-in-law into doing a bunch of work for him when he could have gotten out of that bed at any time, as far as I can tell.
Technically a movie musical, I will say.
Oh, okay. We put it on the list.
Add it to the list.
I think there's only like 3 songs in it, but I'll count it.
Is this a good
No, because every time somebody goes, the Oompa Loompas sing. There's a different song every time. Never mind.
There you go. Is this a good time to kind of just dissect the characters just as they are, or do you want to go through the story, the plot first?
Well, it's weird because I feel like you kind of have to follow the four like plot lines or the 4 seasons.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But I also don't want to just like go beat by beat through this film.
Yes. I want to talk about Rose because
here we go.
When Rose first showed up, she was already like performing, which at first I think we were like unsure. She would drop these like random French words and we were like, is this just like a St. Louis thing? Like people think they're fancy because it's the World's Fair. But I'm like, no, I think it's just her. I think she genuinely thinks she's like
airs.
She's like a woman about town. But it was weird at first to be like, okay, she doesn't have her hopes up that Warren is calling long distance from New York to propose to her. but she actually is. So like that, I think she was playing that too good in the beginning because I wasn't sure, like, are you actually interested in him or are you like playing this off? But she is just so quirky. She reminds me of like an Ado Annie, or like a oh my god, what is her name from Carousel? The Ado Annie of Carousel. Just like that, like very like comedic secondary character, like the secondary like ingenue, you could say.
Yeah,
she more reminds me in terms of like other musicals. Is she reminds me of the friend in Thoroughly Modern Millie, the like rich friend who's like trying to see how the other half live. She more reminds me of that because she does feel like she's like very smart. She's like well educated.
Yeah.
They talk about like her possibly going to college, which is like obviously a big deal. But she's not like goofy, which I think Ado Annie is goofy.
Yes,
Ado Annie's a goofy character, so she doesn't really
her
give me that
goofiness is
energy.
like more like quirks. Like it's an affectation in the voice, it's the French words, it's
I do like her
sometimes.
asking where John Truitt's chapeau was. That was probably my favorite line in the film.
Yeah, I just think all the secondary ingenues you're listing are a lot more fun than Rose. Rose to me was like extremely bland. I couldn't tell you anything about her other than she waits to get a phone call.
I mean, it is funny because Rose is Meg from Little Women. They are like essentially the same character, and they're both the older sister. So that
Esther is Jo, Agnes is Beth, Tootie is.
I think Agnes would be Amy, and then Tootie would be Beth.
Agnes would be Amy, and Tootie would be Beth. Yeah. Because I think there is this like that you're supposed to believe that like Esther and Tootie have like a very close relationship.
Yeah.
To some degree.
I want to talk about Tootie, but first I just have to say this one thing about Agnes, which is one of the memories that came flooding back was when Agnes first walks in and she's like in her undergarments or whatever, and she's singing Meet Me in St. Louis, but in this like extremely obnoxious kid voice that I do recall doing that with my siblings, like walking around the house and being like, Meet Me in St. Louis! And it was very fun.
We were confused at first, like which we thought that Tootie was that girl.
Yeah, I didn't realize there are a lot of people in this family.
The children just keep popping up.
There are so many. I thought you were going to be like, I thought that was Judy Garland for a second.
No, we were just confused at the two.
Well, I didn't know if there was going to be a time. I literally knew nothing about this film, so I didn't know if there was going to be a time. Like if that was Judy
it was a time jump.
And then there's a time jump.
Yeah.
True.
But Agnes doesn't really get to do much.
No.
In the movie
Agnes does nothing.
Agnes does nothing.
Yeah.
Agnes might as well not be a character in this.
Right.
Agnes like just screamed during Halloween. Like Agnes was the narrator for Halloween.
I do like Rose. I think I am a Rose. If I was any of the four sisters, I'm a Rose. But I do think it's crazy that this is let me look at her name again. Her name was Lucille Bremer. This was her first movie she'd ever done. So I do think that's kind of crazy because I think she's pretty good in this, honestly. And there's this story that like Judy was really annoyed that she had to do this movie. She didn't like that she was playing this role. She thought it was like really boring, like the movie was boring. And at the first table read, I guess, like Lucille was just like very earnestly delivering all her lines, and like Vincent Minnelli literally like went to Judy because Judy was like reading everything like it was a joke, like she was like being sarcastic about everything, and he had to go to her and be like, no, you actually mean everything you say in this film. But it is crazy because I do think she, during the course of creating this film, she like turned and like kind of ended up enjoying making it, even though she like had creative differences with like the producer and whatever. But she like, the reason she married Vincent Minnelli was because she said this was the most beautiful she had ever looked on screen, which like, that's not why you marry someone, sweetheart.
Oh, no, girl.
But
she said, look at that glossy filter on me. My God.
Yeah. This is also like crazy because this is when she gets like her iconic Judy Garland look. This is when she gets the arched eyebrows. Mm-hmm. She gets the like, she wears fake eyelashes for the first time. She gets the like bright red lip. Like none of that had ever happened before in her career. And the person who did her makeup for this movie, like continued with her for the rest of her life, basically doing her looks.
This is where Judy gets her powers.
I did want to say, when you said earlier that this is the first other Judy Garland movie you've seen, that I definitely as a kid did not realize that it was the same girl from Wizard of Oz, which I think is partially maybe that her styling is different, but I think it's also that I didn't understand that a movie could be old and also set in yet an older time period. So I think I thought this movie was filmed in 1903, and so I was like, well, that can't be the same girl from Wizard of Oz, then that's a different time period. So I did not, it took me a very long time to learn that, okay, that's that same Judy Garland person. Yeah.
She the 1903 of it all, the effectively this being made in this probably was filmed in 43. The fact that it was 40 years previously is almost like if we were making something set in 1981 today, which is horrifying and makes me want to throw up.
That was 40 years ago.
I wrote in my notes, it's Stranger Things is what it is.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
But it is there's a lot of talk in kind of online discussion around this film of the attention to detail that this film has. The sets are, I to live in the world of this movie would be so much, nothing makes you, I feel like I was watching it being it's so well curated, every shot has such specific elements in it. You really felt like you were in 1903. The lady who wrote the original book, Sally Benson, she said that after she watched the film, the only quibble she had was that girls who were Esther and Rose's age wouldn't wear their hair down. As soon as you were able to, you would start wearing it up, because that was boys started wearing long pants and girls started putting their hair up. That was the sign that you were an older person.
I do want to have a whole conversation about costumes, but first I feel like we have to talk about Tootie, because she's the last sibling in the family that hasn't.
Yeah, we don't need to talk about Lon, honestly. Just erase that he's there. It doesn't really matter. He comes into the story for 5 seconds at the end, and even then it's I didn't need it. Tootie is a wild character.
Judy is I think has the makings to be a great cult leader.
Tootie is a sociopath.
Tootie is clinically a sociopath.
Tootie is absolutely me in terms of family dynamics. I don't think that I would try to murder a bunch of people on Halloween, but I feel like a lot of the other thing, the way that everyone in the family makes it into an emergency when Tootie is injured, very reminiscent of my child. I felt like that's extremely me. And in fact, I really remember the scene where she's cut her lip in Halloween and everyone being around her and having a phobia of hurting my mouth because of that scene. The deal that they made out of it, I think made me think that if you got hurt around your mouth, it would be the most painful thing that could ever happen. So, I love Tootie. I think she's amazing. I love that she is introduced to us on this ice wagon talking about burying her doll. And I also did have a quick false memory for a second where I saw that first clip of her on the ice wagon, and I was like, does this girl die in this movie?
I wanted to know the whole time. I was like, is this where this movie is going? When she screams in the Halloween scene, I was like, is she going to die?
I thought it was going to be full Pollyanna. She fell down.
Pollyanna falls out the window very famously.
So it must be other movies that have a similar sentimental tone that do that. Yeah. Plus, she talks about burying her dolls. Plus, I remembered being kind of freaked out by the scene where she gets injured. Yeah. And then I was like, oh, and Judy Garland is sad when she sings her happy song. So I was like, does she have cancer in that scene? Is that why Judy Garland is sad? But no, none of that. I don't know why I had this I had this fear then for a lot of the movie of and then when did we find out that Tootie's gonna get sick? But no, she's totally fine. Everything's cool.
There was a moment where when she does scream and then she starts being John tried to kill me. Adam and I genuinely looked at each other. We're like, is this actually where this is going?
Well, okay, because I want to say specifically, to get into the Halloween conversation, the entire Halloween sequence is shot like a horror film. And I don't mean that in a cheesy way, but I mean Vincent Minnelli, this film is so good visually. Like the visual language of this film is really striking. The way he shoots like the house at the beginning, like you kind of come up to it, and then the guy at the end of the street that she has to go up to on her own and like throw the flower in his face, like it's all like grand and it's like larger than life. It gives you that feeling of like when you are a kid and you're scared of that like weird house down the street. It really puts you in that mindset. So like once there was like the moment where they were like, Tootie screamed and she's by the trolley, I was like, I cannot believe this movie is turning into someone is dying. And then it wasn't that at all. And then it just returned back to like, night and day.
Yeah. Winter.
I loved I don't remember if it was Esther or Rose, but one of them goes in the house and is like, Tootie's by the tracks and we have to go get her. And I was like, oh, we don't get scenes of like everyone go get everyone to go save somebody.
There was a moment,
such a movie staple.
Literally everyone came out of different rooms in the house. I'm like, I heard a scream. Did you hear a scream? I heard a scream.
It's Tootie and she's down by the tracks.
First of all, how loud did this little girl scream? How small is this neighborhood?
Loud.
What is
Well, I also love the other thing I really like about this movie too is like it doesn't feel like a movie, just in terms of like everything is set in like 3 locations. And like that like we don't go see the like rail, like we don't run down with the family to the railroad tracks together. Like she screams off stage, Judy runs off stage.
It's a play.
You watch it's literally a play. You watch everybody in the house react to the scream, and then Judy rushes in with Tootie in her
Chekhov.
arms.
It's full
so
Chekhov.
It's because that house is so intricate that they were like, we have to set everything inside of this.
Here.
Yeah,
I don't want to build another set.
Yeah.
I loved the Halloween sequence. I was like surprised as I was watching it that I didn't remember it more, because I was like, this is so
striking,
impactful.
Yeah.
I would think I would have more of a memory of this, but I love the idea of throwing flour in people's faces as a Halloween prank. I feel like that is
a lost art.
It's like inconvenient, but very hard to like genuinely hurt somebody.
Yes.
And like I would think it was very funny if a neighborhood child rang my doorbell to throw flour on me. I think we should bring back this wholesome prank. But then plot twist, they put a stuffed body on the tracks in front of the trolley and almost murder a bunch of people. So I was like watching it being like, oh, this truly is like wholesome. Like, you know, I try to like resist the nostalgia of like a simpler time, but like that's so cute that the kids are like throwing flour in people's faces, and it's like, and then they almost crashed the trolley with everyone aboard.
Yeah.
I had a bad feeling the minute they started showing the kids burning furniture, and I was like, what in the animal farm? Lord of the Flies is going
Lord
on.
Of the Flies. And I kind of do like at the beginning of the Halloween sequence, they get them all dressed up. And they're just supposed to, they're not like costumes, they're just like look crazy basically.
Yeah, they look like raggedy.
They're kind of costume, because there's that boy that's in Amazing Drag where he's got the like giant bosoms and the really but then he's also wearing a handlebar mustache, and I was like, the androgyny all over this.
Yes, that is true. But they're like getting them ready, and then they like tell them like, go out and have fun, and then when you come back there'll be ice cream for you later or whatever. And they're like so scared to go out on their own.
So scared. I didn't know why.
It is so funny because watching it I was like, wow, like truly things have so changed to such a degree that like the idea of just being like, okay, go out and trick or treat or even whatever, which is like, this is much more horrifying than trick-or-treating. This is like, go assault your neighbors and start a bonfire in the road. And they're just like, okay, we'll be here with ice cream when you get back. So
I stand by the prank, but yeah, the bonfire was intense. And there's like a part where when they're reacting to the costumes, they're like, who are these boys? And I was like, is Halloween only for boys in this universe? Is that like part of it? And then when they walked outside and they were doing like a bonfire with like random furniture, I think they found people's houses. I was like, okay, I see why maybe you would be like concerned
about a girl
gender roles, but like in that time period, you might be like, that doesn't really seem like a girl's kind of activity.
I do think, the entire Halloween sequence I think is so funny because it's so out of left field. Like you take this entire summer, there's 3 days of summer that we spend, like we have the dinner, and then we have the party, and then we have the trolley, and that's all kind of like
fully
its
like
own very
love story, full rom-com. Really.
Yes, very rom-com. And then we go straight into like just the creepiest. It's so funny to me because it's so not the rest of the movie. And it's not like then like Christmas is like different from that. They're all kind of like separate worlds. Like it kind of just goes back to what summer was, but in
movie.
Christmas.
Yeah, my favorite line in the Halloween is the full like, if you don't kill, you have to kill Mr. Brockoff or else the banshees will kill you.
Yeah.
It's like, what? Okay, so we're not applying logic at all. Okay, got it.
It's great.
I mean, if you're 5, then you would totally believe that.
Yeah,
I was
you're like, oh,
that,
yeah,
that
no,
lines
yeah,
up with kid logic, sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want the banshees to get me.
Tootie is just to go back to the general conversation about Tootie.
Yeah.
She is like such a fascinating character because she's like the most interesting, and Judy Garland is very good in her role, and I think more what you're saying, RJ, is that like the role itself isn't like all that interesting. It truly is like the entire thing is written around Tootie.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess when she was originally cast, her mom thought they would like she should be paid more because she was like so famous by the time she was cast for Mimi and St. Louis. And she tried to use this film as leverage because she knew that Tootie was so integral to the story. But then MGM like tried to like out chess maneuver her and like say that they were going to cast this girl named Sharon McManus in her place, and this girl was like the daughter of like some electrician who worked at MGM or whatever. And they like went through this whole rigmarole of like fitting her in costumes and like getting her all ready, but like Margaret's mom was like, no, I know you're gonna cast my daughter. She needs to be paid more, da 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 da. And so they finally like conceded, which like great. We love standing up for
our children.
Equal pay.
Yeah.
But there was a scene apparently that says once production was underway, Margaret O'Brien, Tootie, was filming a scene when McManus's father, who was employed on the film as an electrician, intentionally dropped a heavy lighting instrument from the catwalk to the soundstage floor, narrowly missing the pint-sized star. He was taken away and briefly admitted to a mental institution for his deed. This is what I'm saying. Hollywood was the Wild West.
Did he confess that it was intentional?
He had to have.
I mean, or they just decided it was, and it's been passed down erroneously through history.
Yeah, and I also would believe too that they told him that like, oh yeah, your daughter's gonna be the star, and then probably told him like, oh sorry, they just the other rather than being like,
would
oh,
you
she was
murder a child to advance your own child's stage career?
Well, let's ask Rita. Rita,
can we get you on the line here, Rita? There's only so many PhDs that can go around.
Ay.
I think that's kind of the only other characters I just want to like give like a general.
Wait, no. Before we move on from 2D.
Yeah.
I absolutely love that in the first scene when her dad turns to her and asks, did you know that this phone call was coming in? The way she diverts it is by being like, the ice truck man said he saw a drunk get stabbed the other day and the blood spurted 3 feet. And I was like, I'm sorry, this is the like lighter fare that we're gonna like be like, you know something funny I heard the other day is about a drunk man being stabbed. Like it's so, and nobody reacts like, oh my God, Tootie, like you shouldn't ride with that man anymore.
It's really just like, Tootie, stop your stories. Oh, you silly girl.
It's like, Tootie, what's important right now is a phone call. I'm not interested in the murder that you're describing to me, okay? Did you know that someone was going to call the house? What? And that's my favorite part is all of her morbid, like, little moments like that I just think are great. Also, I will say, though, I feel like the burying the dolls thing is like such also a class marker that like she has so many dolls that she can keep like killing them off and getting new ones. And then when they were like, oh no, when we moved to New York, we'll have to live in a tenement house. I was like, I'm pretty sure y'all are not going to have to live in a tenement house, guys.
I said the same thing. I was like, look at the mansion that you currently live in. You will be fine.
I was like, I think houses were cheaper back then, but also fewer people had them, so I'm pretty sure you're going to be okay in New York.
I think my biggest overall thing about Tootie is that like this is why some people can't stand precocious children, as opposed to me who love I think it's so funny when children act like they're not children.
Yeah,
because they are talking complete nonsense, and that's why I kept laughing out loud at every single thing that Tootie did. But I know people who are like, I can't stand children, and it's because of Tootie Smith. I think.
Well, there is a character in like the new Babysitter Club series that's on Netflix. She's like the stepsister of
Christy.
And she like is also kind of like in the vein of Tootie. Like she's kind of like spooky. Like she kind of like likes the macabre or whatever.
Yeah.
So I do think, I mean, that's like a trope that people come back to, because it's the juxtaposition of like a sweet innocent little child talking about
is that camp? Is that camp?
No, I was gonna say, scene kids, you're not unique.
Yeah.
Tootie was in the pop way before you guys printed your Nightmare Before Christmas t-shirts at Hot Topic.
You're gonna have to re-put in the Wikipedia page for Scene Kid again into this
to remind our moms. What was a Scene Kid again?
Okay, we do at some point have to talk about the songs in this film.
Yeah. This was a movie musical. I forgot
of music that happen in this seminal piece of work. So a lot of the songs, most of the songs are like songs that were sung in the era. So like Meet Me in St. Louis is a song that was sung around the time of the World's Fair in St. Louis. They sing Skip to My Lou. I'm gonna talk about that in a minute. And then I Was Drunk Last Night was also a song that Tootie sings, and it's also like a real the only songs that are like made for this film are The Boy Next Door, Under the Bamboo Tree, the Trolley Song, and Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas. I don't think You and I was. I actually don't know if You and I was.
Is Under the Bamboo Tree the Cakewalk song?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's start with something light and fun. Let's start with gay Twitter's current favorite bop, the Trolley Song. Take it away, Judy.
Clang, clang, clang went the trolley. Ding, ding, ding went the bell. Zing, zing, zing went my heartstrings. From the moment I saw him, I fell. Chug, chug, chug went the motor. Bump, bump, bump went the brake. Thump, thump, thump went my heartstrings. When he smiled, I could feel the car shake. He tipped his hat and took a seat. He said he hoped he hadn't stepped upon my feet. He asked my name.
Why is gay Twitter obsessed with the trolley?
I don't know. It just started going around like a week ago.
Because they knew we were recording this episode.
They knew they were recording very early. We were recording this very early.
So strong in the zeitgeist.
I don't know why I was going around Twitter, but there was just like this joke that was like, have you heard the new single that dropped? And it was just like Judy singing. This song is so good. This song is genuinely so good. I cannot stand how good it is. It is such a repeat song. Ugh.
I feel like it's one of the songs you can sing after hearing it one time. Like maybe not, you might not get the lyrics right, but like the melody you will get immediately.
Yes. And it's very exemplary of that like style of song in musicals at the time, where it was like it doesn't literally advance the plot at all, but like I'm having such a good time listening to it that I truly do not care.
Yeah, it was
I will
like-
stay in this world for the 4 minutes that we watch you like sing to the fellow patrons on the trolley.
Yeah, it's like the words don't obviously connect with what's actually happening, but it's like it's a happy song about falling in love in a trolley. So of course it's the song that fits in this moment when she sees John Pruitt get on the
And also, like, what other songs in this actually advance the plot?
That's true.
Boy Next Door is a want song. Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas is, I guess, an 11 o'clock. I mean, it has an emotional point to it, but like none of the rest of them move us forward in any way.
No. Sondheim hadn't been born. I don't know if no, he was probably born.
Yeah.
He hadn't started doing anything yet. I do like this song a lot because the costumes. And here's where I think we need to spend 45 minutes talking about costumes. Every look in this is so iconic. Every dress, the hemlines, the patterns, the colors, the straw boaters, the hats the men have.
Yeah.
Every single visual aspect of this film, 100% A+. You win. You are not the weakest link.
From Esther's tennis outfit to Anna the mom's fair outfit at the end of the movie when she comes out in that giant,
like lilac, like lavender shaded
giant hat. I was like, oh, here we go.
Dolly Levi, eat your heart out.
Yeah, I will say the colors of the costumes are like next. We got like acid greens and navy blues and bright reds and like just all the colors you can imagine. And they are not attractive, but they are interesting to look at is kind of my feeling on it. I don't know. The thing that I don't love about the costumes in this is just that I love the silhouette for grown women in this period with the like long flat skirts and the cinched waists. I think is like one of the most flattering silhouettes that we've gone through in fashion history. And so I don't really like the girls' silhouettes of like the shorter hemlines and the bigger skirts. So I don't think that they're like flattering, but they're like interesting, which is maybe better for watching a movie because you just want your eyes to be like entertained, right?
Yeah.
Well, it is funny because it almost feels like those shorter skirts lead into kind of that like revisiting that like Dior does in the 50s of the like cinched waist and the like cocktail length dress that kind of like comes back from that like earlier time.
That might be one reason
I thought the men's fashion was really good too. Like I just remember John Truitt's first look of him, like
the white pants. Very yuppie,
very, very varsity.
Wait, in the yard, he's wearing white pants and a white sweater. It's like white boy and all white.
Yeah, I was like, ugh,
with his little pipe.
The
other costumes I want to shout out are the only other one truly actually is Judy's velvet red dress at the party.
Yeah.
With that like neckline that won't quit. It is so pretty. I like took my breath away and I was like, I've never been gayer than in this moment where I saw a velvet dress.
And at that moment I was a friend of Dorothy.
Truly
That's my friend.
She looks like a goddess in it. Like it's incredible.
Yeah.
Ugh. And if you have to leave town, if you're like, this is my last hurrah before I leave town and move someone else, that's how you do it.
That's how you do it, girls.
You
ladies,
drop them dead. So good.
And then she gets proposed, and we didn't even see it.
It's because nothing could top the proposal that her sister later gets.
When he runs in and goes, I need to marry you. Bye.
But I love you. That's my favorite part when he just comes back and goes, I love you.
And then the father being like, will I meet this man someday?
So funny.
I do like that there's not, I do like in talking about the like a proposal of it all, I do like that there's not a weird like you have to get dad's permission plot line, which I did think they were like going to travel down at some point. And that really doesn't happen in this movie. So I did like that. I do think the dad sucks.
Yes,
I do think he's kind of really annoying. And
he could be worse. I thought he was going to be a lot worse.
He could be worse.
I think like at the top was probably his quote unquote worst, because it's like, it's my house, my rules. I want to have dinner.
No, his worst is definitely saying we're moving to New York. Literally every other member of his family says, I don't want to do that. And he's like, I am the dad though. So
I mean, emotionally, he follows the exact same beats that Mr. Banks has in Mary Poppins. So like it's a very it's a trope, and that's fine. I kind of quibble with the ending. In the original books, like they moved to New York. And I kind of wish they did. Like I like how melancholy the end scene is. And I really think, shockingly, I think the scene when Tootie is like taking the snowmen down is like actually really effective and so sweet. And shouldn't be, because it's so over the top, and this movie really hasn't done that throughout the rest of it. But like they're both so good at what they do. Like the scene is sold so well, and you just feel how heartbroken they all are. So I do buy that, like he would watch that and be like, this can't be how we're gonna live our lives. But I also at the same time think it like undercuts kind of like the point of going through all that to then just be like, and now it's all fine because we're just gonna stay in St. Louis.
But also, like, what would be the emotional climax? Like, there would be no change in the movie.
Yeah,
I guess whatever, because the inciting incident happens 2/3 of the way through, so there's no
there's not really
no rules. I guess there could have been a scene where Judy Garland is saying goodbye to her family, and like and they all come to terms with that or something like that, because it seems like what they're setting up is that she's gonna stay in St. Louis with her fiance.
Yeah.
Since she doesn't need to go to college, he might not even go to college to be an engineer, which like, oh my God, great choice, Betty. Yeah, definitely don't spend the time to go to college to be an engineer. That won't be important to your future in any way.
Yeah,
and then
just pick up a job.
I also love that the like most most feminist moment of the movie, because it is Judy Garland sticking up for her sister and saying like her dad can't tell her what to do. It's her saying that her sister doesn't have to go to college.
Well, I think the most feminist part of this movie is when she beats up John Truitt.
Yes. It's pretty good.
We have to talk about more music because we haven't discussed anything. I think we do have to get into the party scene.
Yeah.
I think we have to talk about it.
Well, let's start with Skip to My Lou before we get into the bad stuff.
Oh, no.
Okay, let's play a little bit of Skip to My Lou.
Skip, skip, skip to my Lou. Skip, skip, skip to my Lou. Skip, skip, skip to my Lou.
Put on your Sunday, go to me, and I'll take you by the hand. If you will be my dancing partner, we will dance to beat the band. So join the promenade and lead the big parade. And if you don't get home at all, your pa will understand.
So choose partner, skip to my Lou. Choose partner, skip to my Lou. Choose partner, skip to my Lou. Skip to my Lou, my darling.
Okay, so as you can see in my notes, Skip to My Lou is composed of a few different songs in this like medley that they do. One of the songs that they bring in melodically is Turkey in the Straw. Most people at this point in popular culture will recognize this song as a song that Mickey whistles on Steamboat Willie. So in the original 1928 cartoon, when Mickey debuts with sound, he's whistling Turkey in the Straw.
I did not know that or recognize it when watching the movie.
Oh, me and RJ did. But we also worked there.
If you recognize it, it is likely from that. But I don't think that it's that everybody knows that.
That's true. That's true. I should have phrased it that way. But they use it as like now in Disney movies, they use that as the like Walt Disney Animation Studios because he like spins the. It doesn't matter. This song also had an iteration throughout history where it was called N-word loves a watermelon. Ha ha ha.
Oh my God. I thought that this was going to be the fun one of the two
No.
songs.
No, they're both not great. And I just have to mention that because you cannot remove the fact that this film does take place in there like this whole sequence is supposed to be like the light, bubbly, kind of silly part of the film, and it harkens back to, and we never really, because we didn't really talk about any of this in White Christmas, but it like White Christmas does this too, where like
they have a minstrel number.
They have a minstrel number, and like the minstrelsy of American popular culture is like weird, like them doing the cakewalk is like a dance that was originally done by like Black artists, and it was it's TikTok. It's white people taking Black people's work and making it popular. But I just feel like I need to say that because it needs to be said that this movie doesn't live in a vacuum. This was happening, and it's all just kind of just a reminder of where we have been and where we continue to need to move forward and away from.
Well, and it's an important reminder because, as I said earlier, this movie was released during the war. The popularity of the stories and of the movie were very much because of this idea at that time of like turn of the century, like that's the good old days, the way that now I think the 50s has become the good old days, right? And so the idea of there was this other time in America that was like simpler and everything was good is like when you look into it, that's always only for specific people. And so it's important to acknowledge that even when you try your best to like give into that fantasy for a fun few hours, like it's pretty impossible to escape the fact that there really isn't a simpler, more innocent time in American history. It's always been a brutal country to live in if you're a particular type of person. So if you're many different kinds of types of people that aren't just straight white cis men with a lot of money. So it's, I think that it is apt to say this movie is not it's not actually simple or without its problems.
Yeah. And it's also the worst part about this, just in like general, is that like it's the weakest part of this movie. It's the part that you're just like, okay, this could be cut, and
this
I'm
could
not
be
losing
cut.
any part.
Yeah, this could be cut. This doesn't need to be three different songs.
I don't mind them like coming
scene.
and having a party and doing the dance, but like then when it's like, and then Tootie has to come down, and then Tootie has to sing, and then they have to do a song together, and like that entire thing, I was like, okay, you gotta keep the ball rolling here. But I also,
because you gotta get to that next plot point that we're all joking.
We're waiting. We're waiting to see the conflict.
At this point, I was waiting for a plot to happen. I was like,
it's such a cliffhanger. Will the next season come?
Excuse me. I do. Should we even play any of Under the Bamboo Tree, or is it not even worth it?
I don't think we should.
I think
it's bad. I think it's also like not a good song.
It's not really a good song. I mean, it's just kind of like it's their attempt to. Is the conceit of the song? It's like this is a song that they sing, that they perform, or is it one of the like dirty songs that she knows because Lon taught, because Lon taught it to her. I wasn't clear about that because it was like, then how do you know the dance? How do you know the choreography?
Yeah, I don't think it's supposed to be a dirty song because they do a whole dance around it. So I think it's supposed to be like everyone in the family knows this. Like this is a great one for the whole family to sing. Oh my god.
Oh no.
Because wait, so I think we're getting a little in the weeds for people who've probably not watched this movie at least recently. they do Skip to the Loo as a dance. Then Tootie comes down. I keep on calling her Tootsie. Tootie comes down and sings a song about getting drunk the night before, which is a little like, oh, Lon taught me this dirty song I'm not supposed to know. And then she does a cakewalk with Esther, so Judy Garland, where they do a dance number and a song. But a cakewalk is a part of a minstrel show. So that's like the thing that they are referencing, which was the most popular form of entertainment in America in 1903. Yes. So, you know, it makes sense that would be something that they're referencing. And so it is uncomfortable both because they refer to it as a cakewalk. So if you have that knowledge of history, it's already yikes.
I do like Molly in your notes. I did like glance through them, and your notes just go, "Oh, the cakewalk."
And then the thing that I'm actually not even sure what group they're mimicking in this song, but they are mimicking some other non-white culture. They're speaking in like broken English.
Yeah.
And it's like some story about a boy like falling in love with a girl under a tree, right? Whatever. But it's like very clearly like, here is a song from like a more primitive quote unquote culture.
Yeah,
because like very clearly it's being conveyed. Yeah.
Well, because they mentioned Zulu, so I'm like, okay, this is like an African tribe thing. But then they mentioned bamboo, which is like not African, very like not in that climate at all. And then later when they're turning off all the lights in the house and they're by the banister, you see like a bust of like an African man with
like a
with the fez. So I'm like, okay. So then is this like where this family's money is from now? Like,
well, I mean, they're celebrating the Louisiana Purchase too at the end, so we can talk about that. But I also felt like at the very beginning with like the drums, and then they walk out with their arms like crossed in front of them with their elbows out in this way that to me is very like white people mimicking Native American people as well. So I like wasn't sure if it seemed like they were like, what are all the cultures we could try to offend all at one time?
Yes, it feels very much like Peter Pan, like, oh, I know it's, you know.
Well, it's just a real grab bag of racism. It's just a real reach in there and pull out what you can. I think the most, this is when people come back to like offensive jokes in like whatever. It's always that it's like, it's not, they're always like the basest, like not original things that you can
not
like,
actually saying anything.
Right. This is nothing new. Yeah. There's nothing original. Like no one's like, I don't know. It's It's just like a whole kind of bummer.
The joke is that look how different they are, which is not funny.
And the rest of the movie doesn't really play in any of that. Like the closest I got nervous was like when she was putting the like makeup to make them look like dirty for the Halloween costumes, because she was like burning cork to do it, and I was like, are they about to blackface? Like I was fully like, I might have to turn this movie off. But it's just to make them look like sooty, dirty, kind of just like they've been out in the dirt.
I will give credit to Rita that I think if in the 90s this movie had a blackface scene, she probably would not have let us watch it.
She would like, we're not putting that VHS on again.
But yeah, it's just weird because like the rest of the movie really doesn't do that. And like also, I mean, by saying that, I'm also saying the rest of the movie just deals with like pristine white people for the rest of the time. So there is no black person in this film. There is no other culture in this film. Like literally,
and it's also it's not weird in that it's just like, this is just casual racism of the day, right? Like it's a thing that all of the people making this movie, I'm sure, thought, what a harmless, fun number that they're putting on here. Yeah. Zero concerns that I'm sure anybody had about doing it. So it's like, it's not weird. Of course, like, right, let's do the racist number now. That's just how it used to be.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
It just sucks because there's so few music in this movie musical that it had to take this takes
and
space.
It should be so cute that it's like her and her little sister. It's like kind of the thing that establishes that they have that closer bond that then pays off and Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas. There's like many reasons that could have been a great number in the movie.
And like the Skip to My Lou sequence, even if it's like the songs it is pulling from are like not perfect or whatever, but like that musical number as like a group dance sequence is like shot well, and like you get like fun choreo, and it's like a good time, and like it's frustrating that it had to then go into this like, and now here we are,
the minstrel show.
Yeah.
There's also, I thought this was what you were going to say about Skip to My Lou, because I didn't know about the origins of some of the songs in it, was that you can tell that it was arranged in the 40s because you get some of those like tight 40s harmonies as well,
and
which
like
I thought was
swings.
cool. Yeah, it's cool to like watch a period piece of a period piece almost now, like watching this in 2021 where you're like, oh, that's so cool to see how like what they put as like a modern spin on this turn of the century song at the time, I thought was cool.
Let's do the boy. I think we have to save "Have a Merry Little Christmas" for the end. I think we should do "The Boy Next Door," "You and I," and then "Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas."
I don't even remember "You and I."
Yeah, what is that?
It's the duet that they sing at
the piano when the dad. This is after they announce that they're going to New York, and they're
when
sad.
the mom is like, "Oh, I'll just pretend everything's okay, and that'll solve our family's problems."
Yeah. Let's talk about it now. So, "You and I" is a song that is like it's just dumb. It doesn't. Okay, again, songs don't serve any plot purpose, so fine. So the dad Alonzo has just, first of all, his name is Alonzo. I cannot get over that. Alonzo has just revealed that they are moving to New York, that his law firm is moving him to New York to head up their New York branch or whatever. I don't even know anything about law. And
he's going to become a barrister.
yeah, that's it. And then the family doesn't react well, even though he dropped a bombshell on them and thought they would like love it. Which is like, this is how you know you're an out of touch father. And they all like leave in a huff to go cry. And Anna, the mom, does the thing that like moms in these tropey kinds of things have to do, and she has to like rally the troops and make everybody feel okay again. So they sing this song called "You and I," and the song is fine. But I more just wanted to talk about the song as like
a piece in the story.
This is the only time we get like the mom and dad's relationship in the film, I think, in a real way.
Well, we kind of know about it because she does a lot of like defending him and like doting on him when he comes in. I mean, I think I get the like what the dynamic is, which is he gets to do whatever he wants and she has to try to emotionally regulate everyone else in the family to deal with his decisions.
Something really shocking for a movie made in the 40s, set in the aughts. The woman is subservient to the man. I'm gonna blow your mind here.
It felt a little extra bad in this one to me for whatever reason. Because I guess a lot of like, especially 40s and 50s, it'll be like gross gender roles, but there'll be at least one moment where the woman will be like, but look at here, buddy. Like at the end of the day, I do get to have some choices made, right? And like this didn't even have a moment where Anna's like, look, Lonzy, you got to do it this way. There was no one moment where she kind of talked back to him in any way.
Yeah. And also like the other thing that I think this closer resembles in terms of movie musicals is, like I said earlier, like Mr. Banks and Mrs. Banks in Mary Poppins. But like Mrs. Banks is like ironic because she's like a suffragette outside the home and then becomes like a demure housewife in the home. So there's kind of just like a comedy in that juxtaposition in general. Whereas like this is like just played very straight, and he doesn't have really any kind of like redeeming quality in any way. Like you're not ever on his side for any reason whatsoever. Like he's not like jokey. He doesn't like get to like have a moment where you're like, oh, at least he's fun and like fun or something. Like
the kids don't really have like a relationship with him. Like it's not like they like look up to him.
I mean, he kind of jokes around with them in the first scene. Like he is the butt of the joke, but he's also like when he comes down and he's like got the roller skate and he's like, remind me to spank you later. Like obviously that's not great. We shouldn't spank kids, but the idea of that joke of like, I'm mad, but also like I'm not gonna like disrupt dinner to be mad, so we'll get back to. I think there's a little bit of playfulness between him and the kids, I will say.
It's supposed to, it's definitely supposed to be like a loving household. Like no one is like, there's no ill will between any of the members of this family or anything. I'll just play a little bit of You and I, and then we can just move the fuck on.
From my heart, a song of love beseeching, just for you, my longing arms are reaching. Time goes by, but we'll be together, you and I.
The Boy Next Door is a song about, wait for it, the boy next door.
What?
Apparently this has become a standard. This is what I read.
This is the first and only time I've ever heard this song.
And I was like, huh?
No memory.
And then I looked, and like a lot of people have like covered the song. Let me play you Barbara Streisand's cover of this song.
Okay.
Though I live at 5135 Kensington Avenue, and he lives at 5133, how can I ignore the boy next door? I love him more than I can say. Doesn't try to please me.
Very Barbara.
Doesn't even
But
tease
Judy
me.
has never met a note she didn't want to scoop. I wrote that in my notes. I think that's a good joke.
Ha ha ha! What a funny joke.
Thank you. But this is like, okay, so Over the Rainbow is like the other song we know Judy for, or the only song we know Judy for. And that song is like kind of weird because in the movie it is technically a want song. It's a wishing song. But I think this movie does a better job, I think, with like the way Vincent Minnelli like frames the shot and like puts her in the window, and like the way she is like, you never take like she's never it's like one continuous shot basically, that it felt like to me the whole time. Like you don't cut away to anything else. And so you really get her entire emotional arc of the song, and like the wanting and the longing, and it's so tangible because it's right outside the window. I do think it was like it was the point at which I looked at RJ and I was like, she's just so good. Like this song is so stupid. It's not like anything really that strenuous vocally, like,
or the lyrics aren't like
the lyrics
complex.
aren't poetry.
Yeah.
Like it's just kind of like a standard nice like jazzy-ish kind of like 40s song, but like she's just so watchable while performing it. And you get, even if you like were watching in another language and you didn't speak English and you had no idea what she was saying, you would know exactly what she wanted because it's delivered so well. It's like such a great example of like how music can like transcend like language, I think. Which is not where I expected that thought where it ended just now. That's not what I thought I was going to say, but I think
As you started the sentence.
I started the sentence, but I do think I believe that.
I think that I don't think it's one shot, because I recall that there's like we see her in the mirror and then we also see her from like out the window and stuff like that. But she is definitely like, she is the focus throughout. Like we don't go to anything else. Mm-hmm. And I loved the part where she's just like looking at herself in the mirror and like doing poses and stuff. And I was like, they did such a good job of finding stuff for her to do that's like interesting enough when she's not really a dancer, so she can't really have like a dance break. But they just like found ways to just like get Judy Garland to move around in a way that I want to watch her move around.
Speaking of Judy Garland moving around, there is an entire comedic bit that she does when she's like wearing the corset later in this film that I was laughing out loud at, when she is like trying to sit on the couch and like position herself,
trying to figure out how to sit,
and was like, oh. It's very funny.
I saw
scene
that
was very funny.
Yeah, I was wondering if this is like the beginning of people making fun of corsets and making them look incredibly uncomfortable in movies, because I feel like there's been a very recent backlash to the backlash against corsets, where there have been more like historical costuming people who've been like, look, corsets are basically just the bras of the era, and like you could pull them really tight, but most people didn't, and they were like not this horribly oppressive garment necessarily. But like it's such a trope, like, you know, Titanic and what, you know, like to like portray this like you can't move, you can't breathe, like it's all horrible or whatever. I mean, like she's doing a great job, but it made me kind of laugh to think about like, oh, the 40s we were already getting into this, like, remember when we wore corsets? That was wild, wasn't it, ladies?
We have it so much better now.
Now in the 40s, women are really, really on top.
How can I ignore the boy next door? I love him more than I can say. Doesn't try to please me, doesn't even tease me, and he never sees me glance his way. And though I'm heart sore, the boy next door.
Do you have anything to say about the song, Archie?
It's nice.
Okay. I guess
outfit's great.
Her outfit's great. She looks great. She sounds great. I do agree. It's like it's the moment where you're like, okay, this is why they grabbed her. Like this is.
It's kind of funny because this isn't really the plot line of this film.
No.
I think that's why it's kind of shocking, is because like the love story is set up in the beginning of this movie. Like this is what the movie is going to be, a rom-com. And then it really isn't. It's kind of just like a series of vignettes of the family. And overall, at the end of the day, it's about actually them like leaving or not.
Yeah.
Because it's not like we end with like their wedding or like anything like that. Like we end with them going to the fair, which they said they would do 7 months before the fair.
That's right. Okay, we have to talk about the fair, because I literally asked Adam that, like, okay, so they're so excited to go to the fairgrounds right now. They're riding this trolley. They're literally running to get on this trolley to go to the fairgrounds that are being built because the fair is 6 months from this moment. And then Adam was like, there's nothing else to do.
I was like, RJ, it's 1903. They're not going to go home and watch Netflix.
I love that this is now making me think that Meet Me in St. Louis is the wishing song of this musical. And it's fulfilled when they go to the fair at the end.
Yeah, there you go.
That's the setup.
Set attainable goals, kids. That's the point of this.
And I thought it was so funny when they were like actually going to move to, when they brought up the question of if they're going to move to New York or not. They were like, but we're not going to be able to see the fair. And the dad was like, well, we could come back or whatever. And I was like, you literally set up this whole movie that this is the most amazing thing that will ever happen in your life and for everyone's lives here in this city. And to be like, you know, we might see it, we might not, who knows? Come on.
Well, also it's funny that he says that, because it's like, that could be the big tension, is like, oh no, but what about the fair? But even then he's like, we can come back for the fair. The fair's not, not a factor. Like removing any possible tension from the scene of the things you've set up previously.
Well, and then also like there's the scene, it's Tootie, is it with the driver of the like ice box car, where she's like, I couldn't imagine living. I'm so lucky because I live in my favorite city in the world, which is like very how children talk.
Yeah. It's giving very like Miss USA, like, I am from the great city of St. Louis, Missouri. Toddlers and tiaras. Tootie's Toddlers and Tiaras.
Speaking of going to see the fair, I do want to touch on this. I haven't listened to the song. I'll probably put it in, and then we'll all hear it when we listen to
the
episode. There is a song that was written for. Okay, there is a song called "Boys and Girls Like You and Me." This is a song that was written for Oklahoma, which opened in 1943 on Broadway. But it ended up not working in the tryouts. So for the actual end, for the end result of the show, they ended up doing "People Will Say We're in Love," which is iconic. We talked about it on this pod.
Good call.
But MGM wanted to use it for this film, and they used it. They shot an entire sequence with John Pruitt and Esther Smith at the fairgrounds being built after the trolley ride, and that's where they sing this song. So there is like a recording of Judy singing "Boys and Girls Like You and Me," which I can like drop
that
in.
Kind of makes sense now why John Pruitt was like, I wish it was back when it was, when there was nothing
swamp.
here. Yeah, a swamp. And just you and me.
Yeah. So I do think that like is fun, like a fun piece of like
alternate history,
and also like an entire scene on an entire song on the cutting room floor.
It's giving me The Meek Shall Inherit the Earth, honey. A full dream sequence unused.
Boys and girls like you and me walk beneath the skies. They love just as we love, with the same dream in their eyes. Songs and kings and many things have their day and are gone, but boys and girls like you and me, we go on and
It also, having not heard the song, as I'm sure our listeners now have, I wonder if it also would have actually advanced the plot, if it would have like told more of the story of them falling in love. That seems like it could have also been useful. Could have cut the cakewalk for that one, guys.
Could have cut the cakewalk. It is funny because I say that there is no. If there is like an A plot, it's like the family leaving. If there is a B plot, it is will Esther and John Pruitt end up together, obviously. Yeah. But there is this weird break in this movie where after the trolley song, and then all the way until You and I, which is the end of the Halloween sequence, is when you have your next song. So it does feel like, and that's like when you have like he kisses her after she like beats him up or whatever for
attempted murder.
For attempted murder of Tootie. But
she also doesn't very effectively beat him up. She wails her fists in his vicinity.
Typical woman. But I think that maybe another scene could have like helped cement the narrative that like, I don't know. I mean, I got that I was supposed to care about them anyway, so I guess I didn't really need it.
I think it would have just been nice to have another song.
It would have been nice to have another song.
It would have been directly after another song, though.
Yeah. I wonder, too, if they were like, because I do actually really like the sequence where they put the lights out in the house together. I think it's really sweet,
I do too.
And it works really well. And it's like so simple. Mm-hmm. And I was like reading, like, I didn't even get this trivia down because I didn't really understand it. But like the lamps they used in the film, like they actually couldn't dim them. So they had like other studio lights hitting the lights and then had to put like Venetian blinds in front of them, so they would like slowly close the blinds when he was supposed to be like dimming the light down. Because like that's not how any of these lights actually work or something like that.
Seems like you could have just gotten different lights, but okay,
there was a moment where they were turning off. They were dimming the lights that were like right by the front, and as he was dimming, a light turned on that was supposed to be outside to show that like now the moon is brighter.
Yeah, there was like a counter light coming on,
but it was a full like switch.
Yeah.
I also, talking of the fair, wanted to read a little thing from Raymond Knapp, who wrote a book called The American Musical and the Formation of National Identity, which I read snippets of in a musical theater class that I took, and I think is a really excellent book. And I think we're going to put it on the Showgays bookshop.
Yes. The Ampliverse bookstore.
This is a really fun book that sort of the overall thesis is how like the American musical is like a distinctly, musicals written in America and like are about America, how they are like a part of our formation of like who are we as a people in the US. And so he talks about all these different sort of eras of musicals and how they line up with sort of like nationalism in that era. So he mentions in the place where he mentions Meet Me in St. Louis is like not really so much about this era of musicals, but he notes the fact that these large scale fairs were important, quote, tokens of America's emergence after the Civil War as an increasingly important presence in the world, unquote. So he talks about how like we had all these exhibitions at this like turn of the century, early 20th century kind of time period, and that they were like a big part of America asserting itself as like, we're a world power now. Like we're not just some former colony, like take us seriously. And he lists different musicals that have big world fairs as the backdrops. So the first is Showboat. The backdrop is the World's Columbian Exposition in Chicago of 1893.
Yeah.
And Showboat is famously the first integrated musical. Then Meet Me in St. Louis. And then the Pan American Exposition in Buffalo, which is where President McKinley was assassinated. So that's also in the backdrop of the musical Assassins as well.
I was like, there's a musical called the Pan American.
And then I was thinking off of this that there are also lots of musicals that take place at like carnivals. So there's Carousel, which I wrote barf in my notes because I can't stand that musical. Also
can't wait to watch it.
Can't wait to watch it.
That's gonna be a rough episode. Love Never Dies, which is the Phantom sequel, is set around a carnival. Obviously, State Fair, the musical, it's set around a fair / carnival. I don't know. Can you guys think of other ones as well that have that setting?
Technically, I mean, it's not like a fair, but like the Music Man, there's like an entire. It's like the town. Like when they do Shapoopy and when they do there's like it's like at the town there's like the 4th of July because they all get together so he can do the 407 years ago speech. I don't know if I can think of other carnivals. I'm literally only thinking of when we went to see Carousel in its revival on Broadway and they lowered like an umbrella type thing that like expanded into the carousel tent for above the dancers, and then the dancers like became the men picked up the girls and the girls became the horses as they like.
That sounds amazing.
And I was like uncontrollably weeping, and RJ was like, "You have to get it together."
Yeah,
we are on the
this
last.
Movie, this show just started. It is the first. It is the overture.
Well, I feel like it's funny because I recently watched Schmigadoon, the musical parody show, and
wait for
our Patreon episode.
And so Aaron Tvett's character is, I mean, it's clearly meant to be a carousel reference, I think, overall with his character, right? But the fact that they have the fairgrounds is like one of the spots in Schmigadoon to me is very like, okay, this is like an emblematic musical thing that we're like at a fair or a carnival or something like that. If it like deserves its own whole location in Schmigadoon that does not have that many locations. So it is funny how there's some connection there.
Well, it's also like, I think a lot of those musicals in the like golden age of musicals are about earlier, quote unquote, earlier, simpler times.
Yeah.
And if you want to have a chorus, you have to have like a substantive reason that there is a chorus on stage all at the same time to do a group song. So it has to be like a gathering of some kind, or it has to be like a there has to be a reason that a whole bunch of people are on stage together at the same time. And if you're setting it in these times, the only reasons you have available are like there's a local town gathering, which is like blah for this, that, and the other. So like I think that is probably why it's used a lot. But is it a book or is it it's a book, right?
It's a book. Yeah.
It's a book. It sounds really fast. I really want to read it. That sounds really interesting.
Well, you can get a copy at the Ampliverse bookstore and for bookshop.org/shop/the Ampliverse.
Can you say that again and not mumble it?
Bookshop.org/the Ampliverse.
When the kids are in the bookstore.
Follow the link on the show notes.
And then the last thing I want to say about the fair is it is a little weird though to watch something in 2021 where they're like, what a great future St. Louis has as a city. I'm sure it'll just keep going up and up here.
Everything's coming up St. Louis.
Okay, well that I think gets me into this conversation that I think why this film is so actually interesting and not the standard fare that one would expect from a movie musical in 1944 is that there is this like tinge of melancholy throughout all these sequences, and even ending with the World's Fair exhibition, which is like supposed to be this grand and miraculous moment. They turn on all the lights. These people had never seen that amount of lights before in their lives, and they say, will they ever get rid of it? And the grandpa says like, well, I sure hope they won't. And like, you obviously know that at some point everything like will go away. And I think that's kind of like the sadness, but I think the beauty of the song that we have to get into and talk about, which is Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas. I'll play a little bit of it, and then I'm going to play later like a couple other versions, because this is apparently the third most popular Christmas song of all time, which I did not know.
First one is Mariah Carey's.
I hope so, right?
Well,
is it?
Christmas Is You.
I think technically it's White Christmas. I think technically that's the number one. But I would assume it probably at this point, it's probably Mariah Carey.
I mean, if we're going off charts alone, Billboard charts alone.
Billboard charts,
Also,
it's probably Mariah. If we're
White
going over
Christmas,
charts in the entirety of history, it's White Christmas.
White Christmas has had a longer run up, but I bet All I Want for Christmas Is You could overtake it eventually.
Oh,
yeah, for sure.
Don't give up, Mariah.
Don't give up, Mariah. You can beat Irving Berlin. So let me play a little bit of Judy. And I'll specifically play the section in which she sings Until Then We'll Have to Muddle Through Somehow, because it's the best part of the song.
Someday soon we all will be together if the fates allow. Until then we'll have to muddle through somehow. So have yourself a merry little Christmas
This song is essentially what one would consider in a standard stage performance, the 11 o'clock number, just meaning this is like the last song of the piece, and it's like kind of the emotional climax of the moment.
The last before the finale.
Yeah.
Just to be clear. Yeah.
Yes. Except this one doesn't have a finale. This one is just
the
like
finale is going to the fair.
Yeah, the finale is watching lights turn on. The finale is the mom coming out in that lilac dress and being like, everybody look at this. Look at this ass, honey.
I would not be mad if the movie was building up to that and then we just see her walk out of the house and we don't see them go to the fair.
Cut to black.
The end.
That's all it's about.
But yes. But this song is so beautiful, and like as I was like researching the song itself and like how it originally started even more sad than it ended up being for the film, and how over the years it's just gotten lighter and lighter as like people have wanted to like focus on how performatively like happy and joy filled Christmas is. I think it's kind of like, I love that this original version of the song exists in which it is like this reminiscent there. Let me say this. I think as you get older, your fondest memories of most Christmases are like when you're youngest, not necessarily like because Santa Claus is real, but because like there's still like you're discovering the world and all those nostalgic feelings. It's just like anything with nostalgia, it's all tied in together. And so as Christmases go through the years, as you get older, you start to you start to feel like a yearning for like this thing that used to exist that doesn't exist anymore, and there's no easy way to put a finger on it and be like, this is the issue, other than like age and existentialism. And I kind of think that this song, in the way that it's saying like, yes, you can worry about the future, but we should just be happy that in this moment we're together. It's so sweet. I'm like crying now, right now thinking about it. Just the way, I think it's very, very kind, and like is very emblematic of it's a very good song in that it's doing exactly what this entire film has done, and it's fully cementing it in a bow to be like, this is what this story is about. And Judy Garland sells the absolute hell out of this song.
Now there is no doubt in our listeners' minds that Adam is a Christmas gay. This is his holiday. This is Adam's gig. Christmas is...
First of all, I said Easter was my holiday.
I don't know.
How dare you?
There are no Easter gays. You can't have that.
There are no Easter gays. I think you're an Easter gay in aesthetics, but I think Christmas gays in the heart.
A Christmas gay in the heart, in the soul. Molly, any thoughts on Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas?
I hope it's fine.
I think it's bad.
What a downer.
No, I absolutely love it. I think I actually have somewhat recently realized that all of my favorite Christmas songs are a little bit sad. I think that is what makes for a perfect Christmas song. Yes. And I think I even felt that way to some extent as a kid, but I totally agree with you, Adam, that like all Christmases over like 12 is just you remembering how good Christmas used to be when you were younger, and there's like nothing to be done about it. It does get better when you have nieces and nephews, or I assume your own children, and then there's children you can celebrate with, but definitely I think that yearning for, I mean, yeah, it's like, it's almost like Christmas is inherently a nostalgic holiday because you're always thinking about how previous Christmases were somehow better. But then I think also that, I read an article about the music in the film, and they talked about how this song obviously resonated a lot with audiences in 1944, a lot of whom had husbands and brothers and sons who were off at the war. And so this idea of like, this is kind of a sad Christmas, but maybe next year things will be better, was like extremely poignant at the time, which probably explains why it became so immediately so popular and has sort of like exploded onto the scene and never let go, right? So yeah, I'd say this is like a top 5 Christmas song to me in general, and then like this scene in particular is just like so perfect, and it's such a well put together sequence in the movie. And it is funny how emotionally resonant it is, even though you felt like very little emotional connection, I feel like, to the characters up until this moment. But it's like, just for this scene, they're real people in some way.
Yeah. And I think the other thing that is I think the thing that Vincent Minnelli does that's so beautiful is they go to the window. It's Judy and Margaret. It's Esther and Tootie, and they go to the window and they look up, and John Pruitt is next door with his blind open, and they have this like warm light on them, and he slowly closes the blind, and it covers them in like this cold blue, like somber mood. And like then she starts singing this song, and it's like it like grips you in how like impressively meaningful it is, like so quickly. And like he cuts to Tootie, who's like silently crying during it. And it's so, I think it's a juxtaposition of like what you remember as a kid of like joy-filled Christmases, and watching like these people who you think should be having such a joyous Christmas realize that this isn't what they want, and they're not going to get what they want, but that they should just be satisfied to some degree that at least they're having a Christmas at all. And I just, it's so, I don't know. It's so impressively done.
So before we all watched this movie, we all knew that this movie had this song and that it was sad. I think we all had said that.
Yes.
Like, we know that this is a song in
Famously
there and that
sad
it's
song.
like a sad song, but we like all didn't know like why. So I'm curious, like before you watched the movie, what was your like thought that it was gonna be sad and like that was the reason why it was sad? I had like my thought was that like they were gonna lose all their money, but
I had that too.
But that's a different movie, isn't it? Is that Miracle? Isn't there another movie where they're like the family like becomes destitute and they lose all of their money? Whatever. But that was the idea that I thought I was gonna get to, that like somehow the business was gonna go bad or whatever, and it was like that was the theme of the movie, was that St. Louis is about to go on this big boom because the fair is there, but they now can't celebrate it because they have to be poor. You thought that she was gonna die, right?
I thought there was a large part of this movie where I did think that Tootie was going to die, because it's very set up that way.
Yeah.
I did not, when I originally went in to watch this movie, I did not think it was because there was a death in the film as to why the song was sad. I knew that they were like supposed to leave. I like knew that much about the plot. Like I knew there was like, because like it was kind of ironic that they were saying like meet me in St. Louis, but I think it's about them like leaving the city. So I think I just thought that it was like because they were poor they were leaving, but I didn't know anything outside of that amount.
Yeah, I think because I had seen it as a kid, if you had tried to interview me before it started, I might have guessed that they're moving. I think I might have also thought, I think I kind of remember that Judy Garland was getting married, so it might have also been like she was like, maybe she was getting married, so she was going to move, and so it was going to be her last Christmas with them. I equally, like Adam, had a bit of a panic that maybe Tootie died, but that didn't hit me until I was watching it, so I don't know that I would guess that ahead of time.
I'm still scarred from Gone with the Wind when Bonnie Blue dies. So anytime a child does like anything remotely precocious, I'm always like,
I've never seen Gone with the Wind.
I've seen parts of it.
I think it's like
thing. I think I fell asleep.
Like film-wise, I think it's important in just the like the scope of what they tried to do and what they accomplished. And I do think Vivien Leigh's performance as Scarlett O'Hara is a slay and a half, and she is so good when she like loses her mind at the end of the film.
But I don't think you're missing out from watching another story.
And Hattie McDaniel's incredible.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a joke that you had spoiled Gone with the Wind, as if I didn't have a chance to catch it before now. I think also,
well, you can't, because isn't it out of streaming anymore? Because
isn't it canceled now because it romanticizes antebellum South? Yeah.
Lady A
or post. Yeah, is it slavery or is it Reconstruction? No, Song of the South is Reconstruction. I think Gone with the Wind is actual still like slavery, because I think they do the burning of Atlanta, which is during the Civil War. This is so interesting on this episode about Meet Me in St. Louis.
Okay, my big thing.
I was checking that. I believe antebellum period means during slavery.
Yeah. Okay. My big thing
from the conclusion of the American Revolutionary War until the start of the American Civil War.
Okay.
My favorite part about this number is actually after, when the dad comes up to the room and like picks up the doll, and then Agnes wakes up and it's like, you woke me up.
Oh, and she's been in the room the whole time, and she didn't know that Judy Garland was.
She didn't know that her
singing
two
face
sisters
off.
has been belting. Her younger sister ran out the room and started shouting and destroying snowmen. But it's when her dad went up and like picked up the doll, and she's like, "Oh, what's wrong?"
That moment was very like, remember Agnes is in this movie?
I know, it was very that like, oh, that's right, and her, ladies and gentlemen, her,
ladies
Her.
and gentlemen, her. But I do think this song goes to the points of the film that I was talking about, where I think that like it does a good job. I think it's both like kind of melancholy and sweet, but also like there is kind of just like this like idyllic Midwestern pragmatism that I think is like supposed to be throughout this entire film of like
you just gotta
the quintessential American life, and you just gotta like
gotta go through it,
pick yourself up by your bootstraps and just get her done. And I think some of that goes a long way. But I really like this song, and I was crying when it was happening last night. I think that's it. Does anybody have any final thoughts?
No, I just think this is a good movie for people who love movie musicals but think there's too much music in a movie musical. So I think this is a good choice for that.
I think it's a movie for people who like 40s old Hollywood movies, and you enjoy some songs in your movies, but I would not say that it's not really an integrated musical, and that the songs are not moving the plot forward or like sort of like really contributing. But if you like that style of like old Hollywood glam and there are some fun songs in it, then you will enjoy it.
I will say that like we had that running joke when we were in college that our theater department just kept doing turn of the century plays because that's like all the costumes that we had. And now watching this, I'm like, I mean, yeah, it's such a good visually appealing.
Yeah, it's because we're now so removed from it that it's like, wow, like
it feels magical. Like it feels like a fairy tale.
Imagine just the amount, just thinking about wearing that much fabric on your person at all times is slightly insane. Well, us unprofessionals have talked about this movie, but let's hear what the real critics have to say. Molly, do you have that PhD yet?
Until it's on your name.
Yeah, until we're referring to you as Dr. Molly. Once you get it, I will be like, Dr. Molly, any thoughts?
What will be really annoying is because we pre-record all of these, there'll be like a long span of time where I will have the doctorate, but it won't reflect in any of our episodes.
Perfect.
Absolutely.
I'll just edit in me saying doctor in front of every time I say Molly.
Every time you say my name.
Okay, so on Rotten Tomatoes, this movie has a 100% rating.
Wow.
And the critic consensus is a disarmingly sweet musical led by outstanding performances from Judy Garland and Margaret O'Brien. Meet Me in St. Louis offers a holiday treat for all ages. A holiday treat, Molly.
It's just, but it's not. Oh wait, no. Actually, let's return to your thesis at the beginning of this. That it has Christmas themes, even though it's not a Christmas movie throughout. What would you say are the themes present in this movie that make it Christmas, even in the non-Christmas scenes?
I have one based on the other Christmas movie that we've watched in Showgays. There is a double proposal at the end, so technically this is a Christmas movie.
Yeah, for a Showgaze understanding, double proposals do mean Christmas film.
Okay.
I put in my observation. I think a quintessential Christmas film is There's No Place Like Family, which I was like putting a spin on Judy's There's No Place Like Home.
Oh wow, you really are a friend of Dorothy, aren't
honey,
you?
She's great. I think family, and then I also think like being thankful for like what you have, I think is like the big other standard Christmas theme. Because I think that's in a lot of Christmas motifs, it's like, oh, I wanted this thing, but then you realize that what you had all along was blank. Fill in the blank.
Well, gratitude is really a Thanksgiving principal, so I think maybe this was truly the Thanksgiving movie of our season.
No, I don't know. I think Nightmare was still a better Thanksgiving choice.
I mean, it was perfect. I'm not going to argue with our brilliance on that, but
well, because that's like what's the one where they sell the thing, the Gift of the Magi.
Gift of the Magi, yeah.
Gift of the Magi, where you should what's the meaning of that? What's the point of that stupid story?
Is it the three wise men?
Mickey sells his harmonica, and Minnie sells something else.
Oh,
and
yes.
She gets him a harmonica case.
Yes, and he gets
her whatever she sells, and it's supposed to be
I think the point is it's the thought that counts, is like the ultimate, that the fact that the other person made a sacrifice of something that they love is what is significant. I just think of it as the example of irony that all English teachers use.
Yes. But I mean, if you want to go with that, then the dad giving up his promotion in order to stay in St. Louis is
but he doesn't like really he starts the movie being like, I don't even like being a lawyer, so he's not like giving up the thing he cares the most about in the world.
Yeah, what does he
just
care
listened to the women in his family for once in his life.
Yeah. It took Tootie destroying very fake snowmen for him to for him to realize. Anyway,
Friedrich feels very differently about the movie.
I pulled 2 reviews. I'm not going to read these whole things. I pulled 2 reviews that are from when this movie originally came out. So these are reviews from 1944. One is from the New York Times by Bosley Crowther, and the latter one will be from Time Magazine from James Agee. So in the New York Times, I kind of just wanted to read a bit of it for like the way people wrote reviews in 1944 because it's so interesting. I'm just going to read a little bit of it. Now that the style for family albums in the theater has been charmingly set by Broadway's perennial Life with Father, calling MGM Metro. Metro has taken the cue and has turned out a comparably charming movie in virtually the same period style. It is warm and beguiling picturization based on Sally Benson's memoirs of her folks, and it came to the Astor yesterday. Let those who would savor their enjoyment of innocent family merriment with the fragrance of dried rose petals and who would revel in girlish rhapsodies make a beeline right down to the Astor.
That's just to describe to go to see the movie.
For there's honey to be had inside. And it isn't just the clang, clang, clanging of the trolley song that will ring in your energized ears, despite the rather frightening impression you may have got from the radio. Okay, I'm not reading the rest.
Review Mark Twain.
Yeah, I will say Girlish Rhapsodies is my new drag name. Ladies and gentlemen, come to stage Girlish Rhapsody.
Girlish Rhapsody.
This is how you write when you have nothing else to do. When you're like, I have no distractions. My other distraction is to lights out at 7 p.m.
Because I have to turn off the gas lamps.
Yeah. My
also, this is 1944. There was full electricity.
Yeah.
My drag name is going to be Honey to be Had.
Honey to be had.
Coming to the stage.
Coming to the stage. Clang, clang, clanging.
Clang, clang, clanging her way to the stage. It's Honey to be Had.
And then in Time, James Agee starts this off by saying, Mimi in St. Louis, MGM, is a musical that even the deaf should enjoy.
Wow. What an opener.
I think, okay. What he's saying, they will miss some attractive tunes like the Surefire Trolley song.
They will miss some of the tunes.
They will miss some attractive tunes. Grace will have yourself a Merry Little Christmas, the sentimental You and I, and the naively gay title waltz. But they can watch one of the year's prettiest pictures, which I think is like, I think it's a compliment, very, very questionably phrased. But yeah, it's good to know how reviewers were writing back in the day. Also, both of those were men. Okay. I will say a pro about this movie is that most of the characters in it are women. That was great.
You could legally say, yeah.
I don't think it passes the Bechdel test because I don't know if anyone has a good. Well,
they talk about Christmas.
No, but even Tootie talked about dead men So
well, I was going to say the Halloween sequence, but they were talking about old Mr. whatever.
Brockhoff,
Yeah.
When she talks about burying her dolls, the dolls are women. So
the dolls are women.
Famously, dolls are women.
Famously, dolls are women. Okay, so on Letterboxd, Michael Strensky gave it 4 stars and said, "Certainly the only story whose happy ending is predicated on staying in Missouri." Sam gave it 5 stars and said, "Best movie ever whose first scene is all about making ketchup."
Which is iconic, truly.
Did they say ketchup and I just missed it, or did everyone just understand that's what was happening? Okay.
They said ketchup.
And then Anika gave it 4 stars and said, "What even was Halloween back then?" Which I'm with Anika. When did Halloween go from being like it's only tricks, no treats, to being like it's only treats, no tricks? When did that change happen? Probably
I don't know, but
the 50s, the 60s.
We gotta go back, guys. We gotta go back.
I love the idea of throwing flour in someone's face. I do like that he didn't get. I like that he just was like, kid.
Yeah.
Like he wasn't like upset.
I would definitely say something with like the consumerism of holidays, because like there was that switch of Santa, Christmas, buying gifts.
Yeah.
I think like in the 40s, 50s.
Once Coke commercialized Santa.
Yeah.
And made him their mascot for the holiday season.
Big Candy bought Halloween and started.
I think another thing too about Christmas that I always think about is very funny is the fact that like so much Christmas like merchandise or just like vibes is like predicated on like the 1950s and 1960s.
Yeah.
Like so almost all the Christmas songs, the standards that we listen to are from that time. Like we have not, it's like we've added Mariah Carey's All I Want for Christmas Is You. And other than that, every song about Christmas was made pre-19.
There's that one, the 80s one,
No.
You don't even know what I was going to say.
That song.
You don't even know what I was going to say.
It's the one,
da, 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 is Christmas.
This is ringing no bells to me. I just wanted to say I think it's more like 40s to early 60s than like 50s and 60s. I feel like a lot of Christmas songs are very 40s.
Yeah.
Yes.
Except for the Christmas shoes, everybody's favorite Christmas song. The Christmas shoes.
I don't remember the song at all. If Mama meets Jesus tonight.
My closer is, what incredibly low stakes antics would you like to see the Smith family get up to in another episode of Meet Me in St. Louis?
So like if we picked another season, like we went back to a season or
right. So it could be like a holiday or like another like family occasion type of thing. What would you like to know?
I want to see other people
I would like to not revisit the Smiths. I would just like to see other
I would like to see other people, period. No, I want to see what other holidays they have the gall to bring up the cakewalk as like, hey everyone, let's have a you know what's fun right now? Let's do that number again.
Time for the Arbor Day cakewalk.
Well, that one was so that party was he was going to college, go to Princeton.
But I know, but they had the whole number rehearsed for a assumedly a different event. I want to get to the bottom of that. I want to know why. Or Easter. I would want to see them do like a full Easter, not obviously just going to the fair, but like.
I thought they were going to Easter Sunday when they first came out of the house when they were on their way to the fair, because they were in their like Easter best, and then I was like, oh no, it's the end of this movie, which has started with this supposed fair happening. I don't know. I don't want to say a holiday because I think we just did that with Nightmare.
Or like Valentine's. I think Valentine's could be fun. There could be hijinks of like Judy and Agnes starting to like the other neighborhood boys.
Or girls.
Yeah. Or Katie.
Yeah, I want to see Katie.
I want to. Wait, that's my answer. I want to watch Katie do. I want this whole movie but told from Katie's perspective.
Yeah, so Katie's spinoff.
Them like singing upstairs, and she's like downstairs, like tidying up, she just hears singing from upstairs.
Did you get the feeling watching this movie that the woman who played, what is her name in Brady Bunch? Alice. The woman who played Alice watched this film and was like, that's it. That's what I'm doing. Because I literally was like, it almost sounded similar. Like I was like, this is too uncanny. I know they're both maids, but like.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like that's a real trope for a long time of like that sort of meddling maid kind of.
Yeah.
Like in White Christmas, the lady who turns into the Sister Act nun many years later who is the maid at the.
10,000 men to take my place.
Wasn't she? Did I make this up? Wasn't she Wizard of Oz? No.
No.
Okay.
No.
No.
Are you thinking of
Hamilton?
Margaret Hamilton?
Yeah, that's not her.
No.
She's the Sister Act woman. Yeah. She was famously and I'm gonna.
Okay.
I agree that Katie's spinoff would be great. I also had the thought that I would like to see Tootie's first day of school. I feel like that would be a very fun little episode.
They make a point of saying that she has not been to school yet.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which I was like, when did they start school? Because she's like gotta be 8 in this movie.
No, she's 5. She says she's 5.
Oh, that's right. She says she's 5.
The actress might be older, but yeah, she's 5.
Yeah.
And I also did love the line where they talk about moving and the mom is like, and Esther's about to be a senior. And she goes, I've waited my whole life to be a senior.
I know.
Don't go dance the cakewalk. Let's start there. But do stick around and listen to the end of the episode when you will hear what we are going to be doing at the end of the month.
The Christmas episode.
The
clang, clang, clang with the trolley. Ding, ding, ding with the bell. Something, something, something with my heartstrings. Da 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 da.
5 versions of that song charted from 1944 to 1945. 5 different versions. That is crazy.
Wow.
Okay, goodbye. Thank you for listening to the best revival of a podcast, Showgays. You can find us on social media. Adam is at Adam Noecker on Twitter. RJ is at RJ Food Rocks on Instagram. And Molly is at Molly Matiny on Instagram. This episode was edited and mixed by Adam Noecker. This has been an Ampliverse production. You can find our show page and more information at theampliverse.com. If you'd like to send us your own takes on the movie we just watched, reach out to us via email and we might read it aloud on the show. Our email is showgaysmoviemusical@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you find your podcasts. And as always, rate, review, and subscribe to help others find the show. And now, as always, the show must go on, so stick around to hear what we're going to be watching next episode.
Christmas is a time for caring, being at your best. Christmas is a time for sharing, knowing you've been blessed. There are the haves and the have-nots, and you could be either one.
Who are you?
Well, Angel.
What do you want from me?
Change.
What you're doing now is such a low blow, demolishing the lives of all the people you know.
The deadline to be out of your homes is now Christmas Eve.
Gotta get out of this town. Christmas songs where there's no reason to wait around. Everybody's there. I know in time I'll lose my mind if I don't get out of this town.
Angels fly 'cause they take themselves lightly. Angels glow and they shine so brightly. You find that light and it will lead you to the part of you you lost.
What might that be?
The part that can be happy. Christmas is a time for caring, being at your best.
Christmas is a time for sharing, knowing you've been blessed.
Christmas is a time for angels making things all right.
Oh, what joyful bliss, that's what Christmas is.
Christmas on the square.
Discovering voices, building worlds. The Ampliverse.